I know the feeling. You scroll through endless listings, see a sleek stainless steel unit that promises lab-grade stability, add it to your cart, and then the moment you actually open the door, you're hit with a cramped interior, a noisy compressor, or a temperature swing that makes your reagents look like a science fiction experiment. It's the kind of disappointment that makes you wish you'd spent a few extra minutes digging into real-world feedback before you clicked buy. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. In this review, I'm going to walk through exactly why the ACCUCOLD ARG15ML can feel like a safe bet for some labs and a misstep for others, so you can decide before you ever set foot in a shipping box. First off, the ARG15ML is part of ACCUCOLD's MedLab Performance series, a line that markets itself as purpose-built for laboratories that need reliable, consistent cooling without the fuss of a full-size walk-in. The unit sits upright, offers about 15 cubic feet of usable space, and plugs into a standard green dot outlet, which means you don't need a dedicated three-phase line. That alone solves a common hurdle for small research groups or teaching labs that are often stuck with a single standard receptacle in their prep room. But let's get into the day-to-day reality. Imagine you're a graduate student running a series of PCR reactions. You need a place to keep your master mixes and primers at a steady 4C. And you also have a handful of enzyme stocks that are a little more temperature sensitive and should sit at 2C or lower. The ARG15ML's temperature setup is straightforward. You dial in the set point, and the unit's internal controller maintains it within a few degrees. In my testing, after the initial cool-down period, which for a 15 cubic foot refrigerator is roughly an hour, the temperature steadied quickly and didn't drift when the door was opened briefly to retrieve a tube rack. That kind of reliability matters when you're trying to avoid the failed reaction email that can set a whole experiment back by a day. One of the practical strengths that shows up in real use is the alarm system. The refrigerator is equipped with audible and visual alerts if the temperature goes out of the preset range, and there's also a door ajar warning. In a busy lab where the door might be left open while someone grabs a sample, that alarm gives you a chance to intervene before the entire contents warm up. It's not a fancy data logger, but for a unit at this price point, it's a solid safety net that many cheaper models skip. Now, the eco-friendly claim isn't just marketing fluff. The unit runs on a compressor that's been tuned for energy efficiency, and the green dot plug indicates compliance with low-power standards. If your lab runs multiple refrigerators, those energy savings start to add up on the utility bill. I ran a rough calculation based on the manufacturer's typical wattage range. And even conservatively, you're looking at a few $100s saved over a 3-year lifespan compared with an older, less efficient chest freezer repurposed for lab use. However, there are trade-offs that you'll notice if you try to stretch the ARG15ML beyond its intended niche. The interior layout is essentially a single chamber with a simple shelf system. If you need multiple temperature zones, for example, keeping both 4C and -20C samples in the same unit, you'll be out of luck. Some larger lab refrigerators offer separate compartments or adjustable thermostats for each shelf. The ARG15ML does not. So for a facility that wants to consolidate a wide range of sample types in one piece of equipment, this model may feel limiting. Another practical weakness is the noise level. The compressor is audible, especially if the unit is placed on a metal bench or in a quiet room. In a teaching lab where students are working on microscopy or spectroscopy and need a low background environment, that hum can become a mild distraction. It's not a deafening roar, but it's louder than the whisper-quiet operation you'd expect from a high-end unit with variable speed compressors. If you plan to keep the refrigerator in a space shared with delicate instrumentation, you might want to factor in a separate enclosure or a different model. Who should buy the ACCUCOLD ARG15ML? The sweet spot is a small to medium research lab, a teaching facility, or a biotech startup that needs a dedicated, reliable refrigerator for reagents, samples, and a modest inventory of consumables. It works well for anyone who wants a plug-and-play solution without the hassle of custom electrical work, and who values the built-in alarm system as a safeguard. If you're primarily storing a few hundred tubes, a few plates, and maybe a small incubator, the 15 cubic foot footprint gives you enough room without wasting space. Who should skip it? If you run a clinical pathology lab that requires multiple temperature zones, or a high-throughput core facility that needs large volumes of frozen tissue, you'll quickly outgrow the single-zone design. Also, if your lab environment is extremely noise-sensitive, think electrophysiology rigs or acoustic measurement rooms. The compressor's audible hum.